Man, I don't know why, but I have the sudden urge to protect you, Kirby. Ever since you spit me out, I just felt like I needed to. So no matter where you go, make sure I'm there to protect you. The first SNES Kirby game. This game has surprisingly a lot to talk about. It's pretty different from other Kirby games. I have to structure this video a bit differently from my other videos, so bear with me here. So is Kirby Super Star worth playing at all?
Kirby Super Star came out for the SNES first on March 21st, 1996. It was directed by the man himself, Masahiro Sakurai. You may know him as the person who made Smash. He actually made a video on this game, so you should check that video out if you want to learn more about the behind the scenes of this game. This game did get a remake with a little more added for the DS, but I'm only talking about the SNES version.
I have a lot to go over, so that does it for the history lesson.
You know how Kirby games play. This will be my third time explaining, so go watch one of my other Kirby videos for a more in-depth explanation. You can run, jump, and crouch. You get infinite jumps since you're Kirby.
They really should balance that in a game.
You can slide attack if you crouch and use the jump button. You also have the ability to block. I'm not sure if this is the first time you can do that, but you can also take chip damage while blocking, so you're not 100% safe by doing this. As for abilities, there are a couple of new ones. You have 25 abilities in total, which is pretty impressive. If you press A, you can have a buddy, but that can only work if you have an ability. Overall, if you've ever played a Kirby game, you will no doubt know how to play this game. This game is structured a bit differently from other Kirby games. Instead of just being a simple level-based game, you have 6 different sub-games. Each sub-game has its own story and its own unique level system.
Now you know why this video is hard to structure.
Starting with Spring Breeze. This is pretty much a remade version of Kirby's Dream Land. It's got all parts of that game. The story is also the same as that game. King Dedede steals food and dreams, and Kirby goes to stop him. It's a pretty basic experience. I guess this is good for people who have never played a Kirby game before. Dynablade is the first actual game that's original to this game. The story goes, Dynablade, who's a bird, is ruining the crops of Dreamland. So naturally, it's up to Kirby to save the day.
I wonder why Kirby is always the savior of the world.
You go through a set of levels in Dreamland that are unique to Spring Breeze. This one showcases what to expect for the rest of this game. It's pretty short, but unlike Spring Breeze, this one has a lot more going on. You fight Dynablade herself, and once you defeat her, Kirby ends up learning why Dynablade was wreaking havoc in Dreamland. Turns out, she just wanted to feed her chicks. Kirby ends up feeding her and teaches her chicks how to fly before they end up leaving. All's well that ends well, I guess. Gourmet Race is a short mode where you, as in Kirby, are racing against King Dedede. The whole point is to try and beat King Dedede in a series of levels. There really isn't a story, just a competition on who is the bigger black hole.
You can feel me dragging this segment out, so I'll just move on.
The Great Cave Offensive is a really interesting mode. The best way to describe it is, this mode is one long treasure hunt. As Kirby, you're looking for 50 treasures. It's pretty much one giant level with a bunch of rooms. Finding treasure could go from pretty easy to really hard. Sometimes, you'll need a specific power-up to find a treasure. Even if you get all the treasure, you don't really get anything out of it. Bosses don't really exist in this mode. And now that I think about it, this mode feels very useless. Yeah, it's just a big waste of time. But at least we get the next mode after enough time, right? The second last big mode is a really cool one. Revenge of Meta Knight is exactly as it sounds. Meta Knight was salty that Kirby beat him in Kirby's Adventure, so he decided to try and take over Dreamland.
Yeah, why not take over the land as revenge against someone who beat you?
This mode introduces the Halberd. You know, that stage in Smash, and that ship from Brawl's Subspace Emissary. You can really see why Sakurai never really uses new Kirby content, because he pretty much understands his work on the Kirby series the most. Back to this mode. Revenge of Meta Knight has Kirby try to destroy the Halberd to foil Meta Knight's plan. Every level is within a time limit, so you have to be quick. The levels are mostly in the Halberd, but there are a couple of times where you aren't. Every level has so much going on and it adds to the level of difficulty. Once you go through all the levels, the final battle is against Kirby and Meta Knight. Once again, you can only use the sword ability in this battle, but after all that, you must escape the Halberd before two things. Meta Knight defeats you or time runs out. It's a cool final sequence. Once it's all over, the Halberd is destroyed. Oh, by the way, Dynablade helps Kirby get back onto the Halberd when he got kicked off. What a nice bird. And now, for the final story of this game, Milky Way Wishes. The story starts off with the sun and moon fighting each other.
If this were real life, we both know that the sun is winning that fight.
This was the doing of Marx. So Kirby's plan was to get help from Nova, who can grant wishes. To do that, Kirby needs 7 power stars to get that wish so he can stop the sun and moon from continuing their fight. But when he gets there, Marx uses the wish and ends up very powerful. So Kirby destroys Nova, and then he fights Marx and the day is saved. That was the story, but what about the gameplay? This mode is really good. Every level is so creative and has a theme of its own. They aren't super long, but they aren't short either. This mode is by far the hardest in the game, apart from Arena. But this sub-game is different from the others. Instead of copying abilities from enemies, you have to get them from copy essence. Once you do, you can switch abilities at any time. It's actually really cool. Imagine if a true open world 3D Kirby game did something like this. That would be so cool. There's a shooter section when you have to damage Nova, and it's alright.
Kirby games have a lot of these, don't they?
But overall, it's a great game mode. This is what I would say is the main part of the game. Music is great. I think this is my favorite Kirby soundtrack. Well, if you count Kirby Super Star Ultra in this, then yeah, by far my favorite. But every song is iconic. Just like every Kirby game, it's fast paced and hyper. I wouldn't necessarily put Kirby's soundtrack high in the list of my favorite soundtracks, but it definitely is up there. Give it a listen, maybe you'll find something you like. There are a few modes I haven't included, but that's because they're pretty small ones. The first is Arena. You unlock it when you beat Milky Way Wishes. It's just a boss rush. It took me 4 attempts before I realized the maximum tomatoes were on the tree. It's a tough mode, but if you pace yourself with healing, you'll be able to beat it pretty smoothly. After you beat this mode, you unlock the jukebox.
If only more games would include one.
You can listen to the entire OST and sound effects here. There are 2 mini games you have, Megaton Punch and Samurai Kirby. They're pretty fun time wasters, but I've only played them once. Wouldn't it be cool if Kirby did the Super Punch from Megaton Punch for his final smash? I never really play the mini games in Kirby games, but that's pretty much Kirby Super Star.
A great SNES game and one you should play. It's not a long game, so you could probably beat it in a couple of hours at most. It's my favorite Kirby game, but this was actually the first time I beat it, and I'm glad I did because now I like it more. It really makes me miss the sprite days of Kirby games because I would argue that those were the most fun games. But that can change after I play Kirby in the Forgotten Land. I don't really know when I'll play it, but be on the lookout for a video about that. If you've ever played this game, what are your thoughts on it? And if you've never, what are your impressions after watching this video? Leave a comment down below. Anyways, I feel like Kirby needs me right now.